warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to dive into, are you ready? Your creativity. So your imagination, your creativity. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you really played? When was the last time you just unleashed your creativity? I'm just curious to know, because today we're going to dive into something that I think is really quite juicy. What happened to my imagination? I worked with Trevor Sorby for many, many years, and I've always worked with highly, highly creative people. And Trevor was quite extraordinary because he would always be about looking at the obvious, but translating into something really quite extraordinary. So one could say he was a true kid at heart, right? But what happens to your imagination? And I love this quote here by Picasso. It says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is to remain the artist once they grow up." And I think that's really very, very profound. How we go from what happened to my imagination and the creative process that we're going to talk about today. So I'm just curious to know how many of you would say, oh yeah, Viv, I'm really pushing my creativity, so on and so forth. And what does that mean to you? Because for myself, creativity is the ability to solve a problem. And today I'm going to give you very practical tips on how to expand your creativity. So are you ready? Because we're going to take a lovely dive in and explore what that really means to you. So what happens when creativity meets bad taste? I'm going to tell you a story. So I was working for Trevor Sorby, and it was kind of an interesting time because I just arrived in the United States, and it was like, okay, Viv, you're going to create a new collection. And when I come back from London, I expect to see this amazing collection, and it will travel all over the world. Oh my gosh, really? So I had to come up with a concept. I had to come up with every single aspect. We designed from the hair into the fashion, into music, and how this whole thing was going to be playing out. It was a really big task. So I worked on the collection, and I didn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. And so I'm diving into my inner self thinking, okay, where are the ideas? Where's the creativity? Come on, Viv, you can do it. And I had this conversation going on saying, you lost it. You don't have what it takes anymore. And it was so painful. So anyway, I dug deep. And because I didn't feel good enough, I kept adding more and adding more and adding more. And as we all know, having a great editor around, which is why creative people have editors that will say, okay, stop, cut, cut, cut. When you have editors around, they can help narrow down and give you a focus. So for some of you, you may be thinking, how do I expand my brand? How do I increase my creativity? How do I still make money? How do I not run off time? There's so many things to consider. And also lots of excuses. How many of you can relate to that? Excuses. Oh, my clients won't let me. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, the marketplace that I work in. And we can make these incredible lists. And you know what? If we believe them, then they're 100% true. But I can challenge you on that. I know people who have broken those rules and been extraordinary. And it's because the desire and the passion is there. So let's get into some practical things before we dive into the very specific things I'm going to go over with you today. So what is good taste? So I do this incredible collection. Trevor Sorby walks into the room and he says, what is this? And I say, well, it's my collection, right? And he said, Vivienne, there's a real fine line between creativity and bad taste. And I thought, oh dear, I wonder which one I am. Like you should ask, right? And I said, well, which one am I, Trevor? He said, bad taste. I felt the tears. I felt the emotion stirring up. And I thought, oh my gosh, no, I'm going to have a meltdown right in front of him. That's so not cool. I remember biting my lips so hard. You can do this, be strong. And so I said, well, Trevor, what would it take for it to have good taste? And he said, you've been really creative, clearly, but you didn't know when to stop. So how many of you can relate to that? When you've overdone a style, overdone the color, overdone something, it's quite challenging. Yeah, so that's the challenge, isn't it, right? So Lisa's commenting, so Sarah, yes, that's the challenge. So I'm going to give you this as an example. let's talk about food for a moment. What is good taste in food? And I always say in food and in fashion, it completes, it doesn't compete. So, for example, if I gave you French fries, which would be really nice right now, what would be a good accompaniment? Just put in the chat, what would be great to complete the French fries? What would add good taste to the French fries? Just let me know in the chat as to what you think would be, wow, it would bring out the magic of those French fries if we added something. So what we have going on clearly isn't obvious, isn't it? Ketchup is always good with French fries, yes. But let's take something else now. How about champagne? What would be a great accompaniment to champagne? Chocolates, strawberries, they would all be wonderful things to have, wouldn't they? Now let's mix them up. How about if we put the ketchup, or Lisa's saying Parmesan and garlic, oh yes, on the French fries, clearly. But what about if we mix them up? How about for the champagne, instead of adding the strawberries and the chocolate, we did ketchup? And how about on the French fries, if we just soaked it in champagne and chocolate? No longer does it complete, it competes. And I hope that visual stimulates you in some ways. You're going, wow, that's good taste. And no, that is bad taste, clearly. So when we take somebody and we mix up the sensibility, we've got creativity flowing, and all of a sudden now we've introduced something that is not who they are, but we're doing what we want to do. So it's like mixing up the French fries with the champagne and putting them together, and it's just not working. So the whole point of this is that great style completes, it doesn't compete. Now, obviously, you can have juxtapositions. You can have something where a girl is in an evening gown and there's something there that's complete opposite, which gives it that modern edge. But usually she's an incredible model that's been photographed by a genius photographer who's wearing couture clothing, etc., etc. And this opposition can be really quite interesting. But for the most part, when you're working in creativity, you want it to complete and not compete so that you have something that has good taste. So gimmicks and trends and fads come in and go out, but good taste withstands the passage of time. And that's the big difference between that. Does that make sense for you all guys? I'm just looking in the chat here to see what's going on. Lisa's moved on to raspberries. I love it. So creativity is like a muscle. You need to flex it in order to be stronger. So years ago, there were a group of scientists that were doing some research, and they were trying to figure out why some people in this very big company were highly creative and others were not. I'm curious to know what you think the difference was, because after 3 months of researching why this group was creative and why this other group was not creative, they came up with one finding. I'm curious to know what you think it is, because the one finding was those who were creative believed they were creative. They acted on their creativity, therefore they were. The group who were not creative said, oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I'm not good enough. No, my job doesn't allow for creativity. I'm not that. They stopped playing. They stopped using their imagination. They stopped saying, what if? And remember, children play. Children have no boundaries. They have an incredible imagination. It's amazing what they can do, right? Amazing what they can do. But as we grow up, we become a little bit more rigid, and it's hard to break out of the sense of certainty. So for some of us, it's very important that when we create our work, we design, we have a sense of certainty. And I respect that. I think that's important. But creativity can't live in certainty. Creativity lives in uncertainty. The rules, the systems, the structure, the protocol of how you do something live in certainty. If you cut hair horizontally, if you cut hair vertically, if you cut hair diagonally, if you use a razor versus your scissors, if you use a certain type of iron, you're going to get a certain result. But what about the uncertainty, where you mix things up and you do a combination and you start to play around with the what if? And in that what if is the originality, is your creativity. And obviously, in a commercial world, we need to just gently add a 5%, a 10%. We're not saying do things radical because we live in a commercial world. But when's the last time you played? So when people come to me, and I've got many members here right now who are playful when they come into the workshop, but some of them get very, very serious. It's like, well, I can't make a mistake. It's like, we're here to play, we're here to create, right? So it's a creative process. So when we're looking at something like these images, lovely hair, clearly. If you have no point of difference, it's hard to get a higher price for your services because scarcity adds value. So the question is, how could you do this and each time have a little something different? Is it the parting? Is it a different curling method? Is the curl sitting lower? Is the curl sitting higher? Can you have peekaboo color? You could still do this lob with the long layers, the kind of ghost layers, but there are so many ways to approach this, which gives you a nice creative edge. But at the end of the day, scarcity creates value. That's where the ad is, in the doing something that other people can't do. So for example, in this particular hairstyle, it's not easy to get a sleek, beautiful ponytail sitting at right perfect place, adding hair extensions so they don't look ridiculous, that they look like they're growing out of the model's own hair, bouffant the top, getting the balance and the weight gorgeous, flowing from front to back and have it be seamless, making sure that everything is correct face shape wise. Looks simple, absolutely is not. So therefore, the degree of difficulty is high. The value is also high because not many people can do it to a certain level. So I want you to think about your brand right now, all the skills that you have, and how can you start to just refine your skills, your personality, your sense of creative expression. So inspiration, it just comes to you, doesn't it? Like if I took you somewhere now in nature that's really beautiful. I mean, I'm sure some of you saw the eclipse. I didn't see very much of it. Number one, I didn't have the glasses, and number two, not much happened. It just looked like a very large cloud went by. But for some people, that is absolute inspiration, to see a beautiful scene of nature. Absolute inspiration. You're not saying to yourself, oh yeah, there's a tree and there's a nice ocean. Oh, I think I'll get inspired. No, inspiration just happens. Music, it can make you feel very inspired. It touches into the emotional side of who we are, the spirit side of who we are. So what is inspiring you? You have to feed it. And as I said, creativity is like a muscle. The more you flex it, the stronger it becomes. And that's what's really important. So let's break down the creative process. What is your ability to solve problems? As we're going through this, I want you to take notes and of course, take some screen captures of anything that captures your imagination. And please keep writing comments in the chat there, because it's always great to hear from you. So how would you rate your consultations? Because that is the gatekeeper to your creativity. And many of you already know your consultations have opened doors where you assumed the client would say no, you assumed they wouldn't do a certain thing, and all of a sudden they open and they blossom. So I'm going to take an image which is a pretty common image. We have long hair with some ghost layers in it. I would say most hairdressers today would be pretty comfortable with number 3 because it's the closure and it's the drape with a nice soft wave around the hair. But what about that client who needs the elongation, who needs the lift, who needs her face to be opened? Or what about the client in number 1 who needs the asymmetry, who actually wants to feel a little bit more glamorous and doesn't want the movement moving down, she wants it to lift her up? So again, this is a creative process. So the whole thing is, are you taking your creativity, number 1, from face shape? Or, which we're going to dive into, are you taking your creativity from the 3 wheels of fashion? So for those of you who are new to my world, I have these 3 wheels of fashion, and we're going to dive into them. So sometimes the personality of a client is the inspiration. She could be eclectic, she could be very, very chic and very reserved, and that becomes an inspiration to you. Maybe it's her lifestyle, you know, what she does for a living, how she shows up in the world, that's her inspiration to you. Maybe her level of sensuality, maybe her level of glamorousness, maybe her level of sophistication is an inspiration to you. You see, the creative person has to have a curiosity. You have to ask, why, how, what if? You have to be curious to see things, right? Very, very, very curious. So we're going to go through this process. And for example, when we're going to look here at this lovely lady, I could clearly have a conversation as to how short would you like your hair done today? How many inches do you want cut off? Now, if I have a conversation around inches, that isn't as creative. It's an important question, but that's not where my creativity is going to flow. It's a much deeper question. So if I have a conversation around inches, I could limit myself, and it's just not a creative way of looking at any hairstyle. But what if I take this lovely lady, I study her face shape, and I say, right, what is going to be amazing for the face shape? So maybe today in my search, face shape is more important than anything else. So that could be the driving force. So for example, red flag when a client says, oh, I don't want my hair cut short, it makes my face look fat. Or I can't wear my hair short because I think I feel boyish. Or I can't do this because there's a reason why they can't do it because. Now, the because may be very, very valuable, but there are always ways to navigate around that to find the greatest potential for your client. So when we're looking at this and we're going, okay, so if this client's number one thing is she wants her face shape to look oval, then I must make sure that whatever I'm going to do is going to be gorgeous. But what if that's not the most important thing to her? What if for this client, the personality of the hairstyle is the most important thing? And for me, these hairstyles both make a very strong statement. They're kind of a shout. And so does she have the personality to be carrying a shout? Is she an introvert or an extrovert? Where does she live? And that may be the more important thing. So the conversation around blonde may be more about, well, I don't want it too bright and I don't want it too quiet. I want it just in between. And let's face it, guys, how many of you have had a client where you've done some gorgeous blonde and she'll say, yeah, but I can't really see it. Like, where is it? What's going on here? And then another time you do the blonde, it's like, oh, what just happened? It's so blonde. Understanding a little bit more, or a lot. Poser, wallflower. These are all important things. Would you agree? Yes. So then the next thing we want to look at is the sensuality. So obviously with this hairstyle, you've got different levels of sensuality. I'm curious to know what you think about the image in the center that is very much more traditional and sophisticated, and the one that's sort of very, very textured and soft. And welcome, David. I hope you did see the eclipse. David has joined us. He's in the house. So here we've got our different looks, right? So we're now looking through the eye of femininity. How feminine or how sexy is the look? So obviously, the one with the texture is very, very sort of soft and feminine, and she has that sensuality. But the one in the center has more of a seriousness to it. It's less feminine, it's a little bit stronger, and it leans more to glamour. I hope you can see the difference. This is the same model with 3 totally different hairstyles. So this is the challenge. If you're doing a photo shoot or you're working with a designer and they tell you the storyline of the collection that you're working on, you have to get really clear. How sensual is the look? How quiet or loud is the look? Where does it live in fashion? Is it going to suit the person who's wearing it? Otherwise, why would we do it? So to me, when I start to bring some order to the process, I then have clarity and I can be on the same page with my model, my client, whoever that may be. So that to me is extremely important. I hope that makes sense to you all. Otherwise, you get decision fatigue. You've got so many ideas. It's like, which one will I do? Which one will I do? And it's like laser in and getting that storyline absolutely nailed. So this is the same model as well, just taking her into another journey where we've got, again, just playing with something simple, adding hair extensions to her hair, and then just simply tying a knot, just to make it look kind of cute and a little different. It's a creative process, and I've taken the person on an incredible journey. So now when we look at this lovely lady, if her priority is face shape, then all of the other points, 2, 3, and 4, are not important because all she cares about is how her face shape is going to look. But I'm curious, what do you think was more important? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Just let me know in the chat which one you think she was more important to her. And while the answers are coming in, I'll just carry on. So here we have personality. How loud is this look going to be? So didn't change the hair color, added some hair extensions, raised the cut around her face, so that from a personality standpoint, it's not whispering and it's not screaming, but it certainly is making a statement, right? But then if I look at her now and go, right, let's move on to the next thing here. And Melvin was saying 1, okay. And 1 was the face shape. Okay, and yeah, that was very important, Melvin. Face shape was very important. So now when we're looking at these and we're looking at fashion versus sensuality. So obviously there is a romance to this, and obviously it's feminine. I wouldn't call it sexy, I call it feminine. And from a fashion perspective, it has a little vintage meets classic, a little bit of that. So again, it helps me narrow in my creativity because at the end of the day, a word has power. So if I said to you, I want you to do something that has a shadow and a shape, you could go and make strong shapes. You could do shadows with the color. You could make volume and create a shadow on the underneath. Just those words, shadow, shape, explodes the creative mind. So I like to give a title to something. So just like a book, when you, the title of a book, the title of a movie brings you in, and it should really capture the essence of what that's all about, right? So that is very, very important. So for example, if a client's working with me and she says, oh, Viv, I want a romantic look and I love retro, I'm going to go, okay, retro, romantic, what does the face shape want? And I start to build my story. So what I'm unwrapping here right now is the story. Every single one of you has a story. Every single one of you has a status of how you show up. Some of you may be very relaxed and undone. Some of you may be more traditional. Some of you may be classic. Some of you may be rebellious and edgy. You all have your story and your status of how you see yourself, how you see beauty, fashion, etc. And the genius today is that everything goes. There isn't the barrier anymore. So just to kind of wrap up today, let's look at this face shape here, because this is where most hairdressers get jammed up. And if you don't get face shape right, you've been creative, but you may not have the taste level that we're striving to create. So when you look at this lady, she is a combination of a triangle in the bottom and a box at the top. So she's a combination of both. So in creating her hairstyle and looking at what we could do, here's our before and after. I had a great conversation with her. One of the things she was concerned about was obviously her face shape. She wanted to keep her hair longer and she wanted to feel feminine. And the least important thing to this lady was fashion. Femininity was more important than being on trend. Not being too loud, but not being too quiet was important, but face shape was very important to her. So success leaves clues. For all of you who use my consultation, you'll know that it is a very logical way of finding the creative answer. So when you look at the logical way of going through it, you start to see where clients score. And if they score a lot in femininity, they start ticking, ticking, ticking. You go, ooh, ooh, ooh. I better put my femininity radar up and be very aware that I keep the feminine soft effect. For somebody else, they may not tick even the sensuality of a hairstyle. They may say, no, the fashion, the trend, I want to be this, I want to be rock and roll. You start to see all these different things they tick. Clearly, fashion's more important. So it's not about us putting our value on the client. It's about discovering who they are and bringing out their very, very best. And that's what makes the difference. So now when we look at this lovely lady here, again, we've got three choices. Is personality going to be the lead? Is fashion going to be the lead? Is sensuality going to be important? Or is it face shape? Which one is stronger, or are they equally divided? That's our job to find out where they are so we can be creative. So when we're looking at the way we can go through here, this is the same model with three totally different looks. I wanted to play with fashion. I wanted to play with the sensuality. I wanted to push the boundaries and yet do something that was very wearable. So what did I want to do? I wanted the hair color and the clothing to kind of integrate. And if you look at this carefully, the green of the outfit is in the model's hair on the right-hand side. The pink of the outfit is in the pink of the hair. And then the shadows and the dark navy blue is also in the model's hair in the center. So what was the inspiration? The inspiration is I want to do commercial hairstyles, but I want to play with the color of the clothing going into the hair. That was the inspiration, which gave it its newness. So when now we move to the other side of the spectrum here, we've got obviously something very dramatic. And this young lady, do you think she really cared about how quiet or loud it was? I'm curious to know. Do you think she cared about fashion? Do you think she cared about femininity? What do you think? I'm curious to know, because it was really pretty evident when I show you this picture here. She wanted fashion. She wanted edge. The femininity, she didn't care about that. Obviously, she wanted to look good and she wanted to look attractive. But if I had played it safe and given her a lob, I would have lost her. She wanted the creativity. She wanted the edge. So again, sometimes you look at someone, you get inspired and immediately click, click. But sometimes you can look at somebody and you go, I've got so many choices, I don't know which one to pick. Or I've got no idea whatsoever. I'm just a machine grinding away. When you start to look at it through the eyes of face shape, you can never go wrong because oval is your goal. That's the science of beauty. You oval out the face, and even if they're square, you're just giving a little more oval, you'll have even more beauty. But where do they live in fashion? How quiet or loud is their style? What is the sensuality of the look? Those are things that capture from the inside to the outside. And that's really, really huge. So I hope that that makes sense. So many of you have heard me do the consultation many, many times. You can't hear it enough. But what I would say, for things to get better, you must get better. So it's not just listening, it's doing. So I would love to challenge you between now and our next mentoring session, divide the time up. And even if you took 4 days to just, even when you're watching television, I'm going to study face shapes. I'm going to see how many pair face shapes I can find today. Put that aside. Right, now I'm going to start looking through the eyes of personality, how quiet or loud. Start doing that for a few days. Put that aside. Right, now I'm going to start picking fashion. Okay, she's boho, she's eclectic, she's hippie. Put that aside. Then through the eyes of femininity. Oh, she's very boyish, she's androgynous, da 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 da. What you're doing is you're doing a focus and you're moving on. A focus and moving on. And ultimately, mastery is when you do it all. Do it all. And you have to be able to do it from an emotional sense, from a rational sense, a gut feeling sense, an inspired sense. But mastery is when you get the right look on the right person, right? So the next thing is, for things to change, you must change. So if you haven't used the consultation, start. If you haven't really been measuring and looking at the face shape, start. Start something today, because that's really powerful. And the next thing, hope is not a strategy. Well, Viv, I hope one day I can understand face shape. No, 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 no. It's called study. It's not a TikTok moment. It's not anything zip, zip, zip. It's called study. You've got to train your eye, and you've got to be loving and playful with yourself and say, you know what? I'm going on a journey. I never considered it before. I'm a hairdresser. I didn't even look at face shape. I was just so busy looking at the hair. I didn't look at what it's sitting on top of. So what will be your massive action plan today? What will it be? I'm curious to know. What are you going to do today that's going to be your massive action? I'm curious to know. Is endless scrolling on social producing outstanding results? So we all love social and it is addictive, clearly. And very often you can see some wonderful, wonderful things. But my question is, that time invested in social, is it producing radical results in your business, in training your eye, or are you getting another idea and another trick that you probably will never use? I'm going to give you just a quick example. We have a bridal workshop happening next week. What we discovered is that people love watching hairstyles, bridal, red carpet, updos. They on reels, it's like millions of people are watching them. Then we discovered, well, everyone loves watching them. Hairdressers don't want to do them. Very few hairdressers want to do them. And we discovered more hairdressers do not like doing brides than do. How many of you are relating to that? And so it's like, wow. Now, why? Is it just the fear? And it can be stressful. Is it the lack of skill? So people say, no, I don't do dress hair. I don't do long hair. I don't do that. And then we realized, yeah, people love watching it, but they don't want to do it. There's a huge market there for your creativity. And the genius about dressing hair is if you make a mistake, you brush it out. It's a shampoo away from change. But when you're coloring, when you're perming, and when you're cutting, if you get that wrong, you've really got a problem. But when you dress and style hair, it opens the door to your creativity. So with your massive action this week that you're going to start pushing yourself a little bit more in your finishing skills, because if you push it too far, you can always say, oh, went too far, I'll brush it out, right? Play it safe and take a baby step. So that's important as well. So remember, change requires passion and desire. No one can put that desire in your heart. A yearning to be better tomorrow than today. When people ask me, if you've been in the business a long time, how come, you're still going strong? I just want to be better tomorrow than today. I want to learn as much as I can today, and I want tomorrow to be even better. And all I know is that when you become a lifelong learner, it just magically happens. It magically happens. And I just want to salute all of you who are here this afternoon. Just that I know that you have a passion for that. Oh, Lisa's saying you love brides. That's good. So for those of you who don't know who I am Vivienne Mackinder, and I have a website called viviennemackinder.com. My Instagram and my Facebook are the same. And if you've got questions about how you can be coached by me, we've got lots of members here today. Who are, I'm sure, taking down notes. And we have a lot of fun creating together, don't we, guys? It's a lot of fun. So if any of you are interested that we want to be coached by myself, then all you need to do is reach out to us and give us a call. And we can explain to you different programs that we have. We have many, many members who are here. Many of them were nervous about dressing hair, and now they have become pretty fierce at doing it. So it's all a whole lot of fun. So what is the summary today? I want you to put your creative antennas up. And when you look at something, start asking, oh, why, how? When you look at a flower, that's an interesting idea. Can I translate that into a hair color idea? When you're looking at feathers of a bird, can I translate that? So you take what exists, a bird, sushi roll, flowers, obvious things, right? And you go, wow, what if I took that idea and flipped it and turned it into something else? That's the ultimate goal. And having a great idea is fine, but if it doesn't fit who's wearing it, you went into what I did at the beginning, which is bad taste. So it's so, so important that whatever you do, you don't lose the sight of good taste. Remember my analogy of the food, how you pair food together to bring out the flavor, to bring out the greatness. So I want you to think about whoever sits in your chair, your responsibility is to bring out their magic, bring out their greatness from the inside to the outside so that your client can be the very best version of herself. And it's our job to inspire. And creativity can show up in little tiny ways. You need to have more fun, get more playful, and celebrate those little victories and recognize those magic moments. And you all know I am passionate about photographing my work and making sure that my work is journaled so that I can look back and go, that worked, that didn't. Why did that not work? Well, blah, 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 blah. And I can analyze it, and from there, I grow. So I hope you found today helpful and inspirational. And what we're going to be doing, and I encourage you to just send in some photographs of your clients. You can send them in to us at education@mackinder.com. And we'd like to do kind of like a little teardown, a loving teardown, to have you send photographs of your clients either before and after, or a before and you don't know what to do, so that we can actually start reviewing the real life situation and how you can take your guests and make them even more amazing. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it, and have a lot of fun. And until our next time together, thank you so much, and bye for now.